Dad, what's the future gonna look like?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me, and this is what an incredible summit it is. Let's start with a video before I say
Really,
anything.
I don't know why it is that all of us are so committed to the sea. I think it's because, in addition to the fact that the sea changes, and the light changes, and ships change, it's because we all came from the sea. And it is an interesting biological fact that all of us have in our veins the exact same percentage of salt in our blood that exists in the ocean.
Oil deployed. We have takeoff.
And therefore, we have salt in our blood, in our sweat, in our tears. We are tied to the ocean. When we go back to the sea, whether it is to sail or to watch it, we are going back to when it became.
I hope all of you guys are enjoying the air shows and the airplanes and the eVTOLs. But today afternoon, I'll take a few moments to take you back to the sea. That's one of my favorite speeches by JFK, by the way. So when you really think about it, civilization was really started on the water. The waterways form the life veins of this nation. And at the turn of the century, cars became much more efficient, and the roadways replaced the highways. Now, 40% of the world today live in congested coastal cities like San Francisco, New York, London, you name it, right? And many of us know how frustrating it is to be stuck on the traffic in the Bay Bridge. And we think about digging tunnels and maybe also eVTOLs, which are cool. But you have this bay, right, this empty bay, this free piece of infrastructure which is underutilized. Why don't we have high-speed boats, let's say from Redwood City to Berkeley, that can cut all the traffic instead of 1.5 hours, take 20 minutes? Well, the reason is boats today are uncomfortable and pretty expensive. You don't want to travel like that twice a day, do you? No, nobody does. So why is that? I mean, it's because of the physics, right? You have this hull that is just pushing through water. It takes a lot of energy. So it's 15 times less efficient than a car. What I mean by that, it's only 2 miles per gallon. And in a car, you're getting 30. So from a business perspective, it makes no sense to be running a boat transportation company. I mean, I wouldn't, but I would. I would if I solved the problems, which is what we did. So, I was an aerospace engineer, and then at MIT, I was building these drones, so kind of water and air and all of that. And I thought, well, instead of, really trying to fight resistance, what if we change the physics of moving through water? What if we don't push water, but we glide above water, fly above water? So, because what I did, we just put some wings under the boat, and we have a boat that flies. So, they're hydrofoils, right? So what happens is you have these wings underwater, and at a certain speed, the boat takes off, literally takes off. And you're above the waves, 4.5 feet. You eliminate all the hydrodynamic drag or the resistance. So you're very efficient. And the cherry on the top is because you're at 4.5 feet above the water, you don't have seasickness. So you're not slamming against the waves anymore. It's very smooth. Now, what that means in terms of efficiency is that the hydrofoils makes it super efficient, right? In terms of numbers, it's like 3 to 5 times more efficient than the traditional boat. But you can squeeze a bit more efficiency by looking at the powertrain. Like instead of doing a gas, traditional powertrain, if you go to electric, you can make it a little bit more efficient, right? You get a twice X bump in efficiency. So an electric hydrofoiling boat can be as much as 10 times more efficient than a traditional gas boat, which is pretty insane. But this is not a very simple system, and hydrofoils are not new either. To make it work very, very seamlessly, you have to think of the architecture, the structure, and everything. So that means that these hydrofoils are not passive foils. They are controlled by a computer. These flaps on the foils go 30 to 50 times a second. So there's flight control computers, the sensors, they all work together for the autonomous control, which can be obviously extended to full end-to-end autonomy. And that's a key part of what we build. So this is the N30 Pioneer. This is America's first all-electric hydrofoiling vessel, and it's 75 nautical miles range. It takes up to 90% less energy than a traditional gas boat, and you're foiling 4.5 feet above waves, so no seasickness. It's really quiet. It feels nothing like being on a boat, more like in a plane with a gentle hum. And having a team of engineers who are very competitive, it happens to be the longest range electric boat in the world at speed. Now, what does it unlock? This is San Francisco. If you know Oyster Point, where all the biotech companies, it's a pretty booming tech place and bio place in the Bay. And if you want to come from the East Bay, let's say Alameda, it takes you 1.5 hours sometimes over at the Bay Bridge. You go from Alameda across the water, 13 minutes. 13 minutes. And you don't need to build anything special to get this happen, right? You can just start driving it tomorrow. So, and when you expand this vision out, what does that mean? It means that every coastal city, right, every marina can be a transportation hub. You don't need to build new infrastructure like you need for ferries. You also don't need any regulatory special permission. I mean, it's a small vessel. So you can start a whole new kind of scalable transportation network that was never, ever possible before. This is a little bit of a glimpse how we got here in the last 3 years. That's a little boat that I started with. A lot of work on stability. That's actually in the storm. That was at 55 knots, like 55 knot guts on the bay. It's an all carbon fiber boat, so you can see the layups. We do work with defense, and Leidos is one of the primes we've worked with. And we have supplied boats for recreational, luxury hospitality, and obviously to our Navy. The same technology that is in the US Navy vessels today is what you have in our transportation vessels too, because robustness and reliability matters when it comes to moving people. Now, to really go back to the seas, right, just being on the coast is not enough. We have to go beyond the coast, out in the oceans. So if you look at this chart, what you see is there's the United States. Number 19 when it comes to maritime. We are pretty up there in terms of auto. We are up there in space. But maritime, a crucial industry, we are number 19. And that's a big risk. That's a big risk in terms of national security, in terms of trade, in terms of our economic opportunity. So we ask a very fundamental question. What would it take for America to lead again? What do we need to do? We need to build a company. We need to build a company, a dual-use company that builds dual-use platform that's scalable. What that means is a common base platform that is modular, that can be adapted to a number of use cases. Why is that important? So we live in an era of asymmetric warfare, right, where you have some hundreds of $1,000 drone take up like take out an $8 billion or $12 billion carrier craft. So in order to get scale, when you make it dual use, you basically bring the cost down, right? You can have many, many vessels and much lower cost, and you can scale. But just lowering the cost is not enough. I mean, it's hard to beat China at cost, right? So you have to ask much more from first principle. How do you build the best vessel? What does it even mean to build the best vessel? How do you build fundamental leverage from first principles? And this is not about like strapping a bunch of technology, autonomy, and all that, right? They are a layer above. How do you build vessels that scale, that are really, really good out in the seas for long endurance, long missions? You also, again, have to start with the physics. So with that, I want to introduce you to what we are building, the next product, the N30 Quanta. This will fundamentally change what we can do in the seas. It's just like our N30 vessel, except it's a modular platform and it's hybrid electric, stacked with sensors capable of full autonomy, and you can swap the superstructure to different kind of configurations. Whether that's a cargo, that's a shuttle, or that's an unmanned military vessel, right? But what is impressive and the disruption is, you saw the electric boat that was 75 nautical miles range. When you look at this, gas boats, 30 feet at cruising speed, maybe 350, 400 nautical miles. With the hybrid electric variant, is 2,000 nautical miles at speed. I'm not talking about, slow speed. I'm saying at 20 knots. This is not an incremental improvement. This fundamentally changed the missions and what we can do in the seas, where we can go, for how long. 2,000 nautical miles. But the Quanta is not just a standalone platform. I mean, it's a part of a family of fleets that have been, we have been heads down designing and building. So it's the smallest one, the 30 feet, and you can take up to sea state 3, which is about, let's say, 6 feet of waves. Valkyrie is the 80 feet catamaran that's coming up, 3,500 nautical miles foiling range at sea state 4. And Morpheus, which is really the most versatile and for the most challenging missions, is 120 feet, 5,000 nautical miles, foiling range, sea state 5, that is up to over 12 feet of waves. And each of them are the best vessel on those 3 parameters that I mentioned in their category, which is the small, medium, and the large vessel category. And when you deploy this fleet, I mean, if you look at the map, you can have presence across the globe for a very long mission. You can go from New York all the way to Europe, like London, in one charge. That's insane. We have never been able to do something like that. And with our maiden voyage that is set for next year, we are all set to accomplish what no other marine vessel has ever done. With the fleet we have, I really believe that America will go farther, faster, and stronger. And as we scale, our presence can be unmatched on the sea as a nation. So with that, I will say that this is how I think we will lead again in maritime, and America will go back to the seas. So thank you for joining me. Thanks very much. And come out and check out the vessel. The prototype of Quanta that we are working is right out there opposite to the dining hall.
The future is gonna be awesome.